The year was 1859. Redmont began as a mere dot on a surveyor's map, a quiet frontier outpost defined by a modest gold rush and the rugged persistence of its early settlers. However, the true transformation of this high plateau would not be found in a miner's pan, but in the arrival of the Iron Horse. By 1871, the Mesa Southern Railroad pushed its tracks into the valley. This era was defined by the Great Railway Mania. Driven by a relentless pursuit of expansion and backed by immense land grants, the directors of the Mesa Southern invested millions in infrastructure that far exceeded the requirements of the era. They constructed a Union Station of such grand proportions it stood as a lonely monument of stone amidst the sagebrush and sandstone of canyon country. The inevitable collapse arrived with the Panic of 1873. As the financial bubble burst, credit vanished, and the rapid expansion of the rails halted. The railway kings were forced into bankruptcy, leaving Redmont with a sprawling industrial footprint meant for a city that did not yet exist. Yet the city did not fade into a ghost town. Instead, the oversized infrastructure of the 1870s became the permanent template for the future.
Hello, and welcome back to Redmont. Look at what we completed in last week's episode, the creation of our historic main street for the town. For this episode, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be expanding the city. We're going to try to imagine the effects of the introduction of the railroad to the community. Obviously, I'm building a modern city in 2026, but I'm trying to approach it from a historical angle and imagine how, as the region builds up, how it impacts the town. Last week, I got a few comments about how I didn't have a railroad. That was on purpose. A railroad for this community in this part of the United States would be major. That's a major impact, and I didn't want to shoehorn it in into the first episode. It deserves its own focus. What I'm doing here is I'm cleaning out some space for where the railroad is going to go. This would have been built during the height of the railroad boom of the 19th century. Think of like the dot-com bubble or late 20th century. Exactly the same thing. Tons and tons of money flowing in, more money than they know what to do with, so we get weird things like a gigantic train station in the middle of nowhere because there was so much money and they are just wasting it. We also get effects like railroad lines that are very inefficient and go to nowhere. They built infrastructure before they could use it, and that's what we're depicting here of train station. And we're just going to draw out where our rail line is going to go here. need to bring the rail line up over one of the highways here. For realism, I'm trying to stick to realistic grades for the rail line. Obviously in game, we can kind of fudge this a little bit. And as long as it looks visually okay, I'm not going to be too picky about the grades. But, I do want to keep them as realistic as possible. Obviously, the way the game draws in bridges here, they're always way too high, so we can lower these down a little bit. It helps with the grade and the visual appearance, so it looks pretty good. So yeah, the interaction of the railroad would have been the major turning point for this community. It's what drives this community from being just an isolated farming community to a major hub in the western United States. It needs to be, we need to imagine what the impact of that would have been on the city. We're going to be drawing bridges across the river. Now that we have a rail station, the grid of the city is going to start to align itself to the station. It's also, the grid along the station here is more of a true north-south orientation, which is what the surveyors would have preferred. Obviously, the original settlers weren't really paying that much attention, so that's why the original city is a bit of an angle to the modern city. On the west side of the river, we have a little bit of a hill. It's not super high, but the elevation is a little higher than the east bank. So we're going to flatten it out a little bit. Now, I'm trying not to alter terrain too much. I'm just shaving off, I think, about 7 meters off the top here, so it's not drastic. Cities, as they develop, they do tend to flatten out terrain, so we can get away with this. I definitely don't want to make any major alterations, like flattening out mountainsides or anything like that. But we can imagine that the city did have the effect of flattening out. Here I'm leaving in the hill where the floodplain for the river, we're going to be leaving that intact. And we're going to be drawing our bridges over the river. This is kind of the reason why I haven't been focusing too much on detailing quite yet. All this detailing I've done along the river here, the grass surfaces underneath, unfortunately they bleed up onto the roads above them. So what that means is I have to come back and delete out all these grass surfaces underneath. The reason I'm not focusing too much on detailing quite yet is detailing takes time. Having to go back and erase it all, that's not really something I want to do. So until I have a more established idea of what the final footprint of the city, I'm going to be a little light on the detailing until I get all that established. I do want some access over here across the rail tracks to this little chunk of land, and we're just going to make a little overpass here. This is going to be eventually probably some industrial area there, probably warehouses, light industrial, nothing too much. A lot of it is placeholders, like if I'm filling in industrial and stuff, I've not got to the point where I finalized the exact look, so I'm adding functional services and zoning to satisfy need. At this point, I'm not really too focused on its final look. On the west bank of the river, the grid is going to mimic the grid or match the grid alongside the train station. Of course, we don't want grids everywhere. Like if the grids are too large, it starts looking repetitive. So for, because we're kind of doing a miniaturized city, the grid for the West Bank is not a huge area, but because we are depicting an American city, we do need to conform to some sort of grid. Start laying some service buildings out on the West Bank. I guess we're calling it East Bank, West Bank. I guess that's the easiest way to do it. Nothing too major yet. Everything here is subject to change. So we're going to be zoning in some industrial. Once again, this is kind of, for the moment, it's more functional detailing. So this is all really just functional. I'll be coming back at a later date to detail out these areas properly. But right now I'm just establishing where things are going. I'm going to be using Platter to zone most of the less detailed areas of the city. Placing assets by hand is just incredibly time consuming. This is a good middle ground. It's not perfect. Like for snapping options here, for some reason it doesn't want to snap to the roads very well. It doesn't matter if I have the other snapping options disabled or not. It just seems to want to do its own thing. So that's a bit finicky. I get better at it throughout the course of the episode, but at the beginning here, I'm kind of struggling with it a little bit, but it is easier than hand placing every single house. I think it's time for another church. I'm not going to keep this church in this location. I will move it later. I was just putting it down. Here, it's a little too large on the landscape. I'm placing a cemetery here for the function. I will come back and detail this out as a proper cemetery in a future episode. I'm using the UK assets here. They're low density homes and they're semi-detached homes. They have the appearance of larger scale homes for, the wealthier citizens. And now for Redmont, we're going to start thinking about how the impact of the arrival of the railroad and how that would have affected the development of the city. So what's going to happen is the downtown core is going to shift over towards the train station. So I'm removing some of the low-density residential homes, and I'm replacing them with the southwest and northeast medium-density residential buildings, just to indicate that there's been substantial buildup around the train station. The arrival of the train station, there's going to be a rail yard, and eventually I'm going to get into building a cargo depot. And all those developments are going to have major impacts on the development of the city. This will become a major urban hub for the entire region. And right now I'm just trying to imagine what that might look like. So for the first episode, my goal was to depict the city of how it might have appeared before 1930. Obviously, I'm building a modern city here, but I want the density to reflect like that early period of time. My aim here is kind of to imagine the city somewhere between 1950 to the 1960s. Right beside the train station, that's going to become our new downtown core. Going to place a few custom assets. This one's a European asset, but I think it looks pretty nice. We're going to put it right down by the train station here. Going to remove some of these crossings, just make the roads a little easier to drive. I really love this asset. This is like out of the custom assets I've found so far, this one is really quite nice. Unfortunately, I don't remember the creator of this one, but I love the stairs in the front. I also like this one quite a lot. It's a little harder to place because of the angle. I think it works okay here, but I like this one as well. This is really nice. On the West Bank, I'm going to be placing, this one's obviously one of the vanilla assets, but I think it's one of my favorites out of the vanilla set. I don't know if it's going to stay here. Everything on the West Bank is kind of like in flux. Right now I'm just depicting what the expansion, the urban expansion would look like. I imagine in time the urban center is probably going to cross the river to the West Bank. So that's the direction I'm going, but I'm not at a point where I want to depict that quite yet. Did find trying to use platter to replace commercial buildings for our downtown core to be this was a little more finicky, and I don't know if I really like it all that much. It was easier in the sense of not having to use Find It to go find the actual buildings, but it is also a little clunky. I do want a couple of nice looking bridges here. Because we're so low to the river, there's not a lot of options in game still. That was one disappointment with the bridges that were added to the game. So we're going to use a vanilla one here. And that just gives you an idea of how the Skyline's developing. I'm kind of jumping around back and forth here, back to this train station again. I always like this vanilla signature building as well. This one I always thought was quite nice looking. We're going to put it directly across from the train station. And at this point, I've just kind of reverted back to hand placing assets for downtown core. I think this is the way I'm going to do this. There's some areas of the build where I want a little more control over what I'm going to be putting down. I'm going to be using Sully's Brickworks custom assets here. Once again, beautiful buildings. Sully is a master at this sort of work, so these are very nice. I'm going to push them together so they're touching, so they almost look like one building, and I will recolor them so they all match. Now, Redmont is, of course, a modern city, so there's going to be modern buildings, and I'm going to be mixing them in. So the mixture here is mostly southwest and northeast. There's an urban promenade building right there. So yeah, it's a mixture of old and new, predominantly old. Right around the train station, it's the older part of the city, so all the buildings are going to have that kind of like mid 20th century look about them. There is definitely not enough parking for the train station, so I'm going to add some right now. I did get a comment from one viewer asking how I was able to line these parking lots up well. To be honest, it's just a lot of trial and error. I didn't, just for the save everybody's sanity in watching this, I edit out quite a bit of it. I'll leave a little bit of it in here, but yeah, it's you have to shuffle these around a little bit to get them to work. I don't know why. This is my preferred method for drawing out parking lots. I don't like the parking roads. They have their uses, but I much prefer creating the parking lots this way. I just realized I did not include any lighting for this parking lot. I'm going to have to come back in here and fix that. So yeah, as you can see, I do have to fiddle with them a bit to get them to line up properly. We're going to be moving over the office buildings over here. We're going to be creating a little office park on this side of the train station. And for the rest of the downtown build, it's just a matter of going through the assets and finding the ones I like. The skyline height for the buildings, I still don't want to go too high. I believe in the original city, the tallest building was about 5 stories. Here we're going up to, I think, maybe about 10 stories. This one right here we're looking at, that might be the tallest building on the skyline right now. Still not ready to think about what the modern skyline will look like here. I really like these medium density residential buildings. These are really nice assets. They're kind of universal, so you could use them pretty much everywhere. We are getting rid of the palm trees. Those don't fit our climate. And I have a few awkward spots here, so I'm going to be including a playground and a dog park. Kind of squeezing this in here, so we're just going to use better bulldozer here to delete out some of these elements so it fits a little better. I'll come back in here and add some more trees back in. A bit of underground parking because they have no street parking here. I'm going to run a path right along the road here. This works, but I do have this really weird little glitch in the landscape right there. I can't get rid of that. It's going to just stay there. So this is a great opportunity to use the oldest trick in the book, a few trees to hide the mess so nobody can see it. I like these little warehouse buildings here. These are from the mod store as well. I really like this view here. I have to say, building where the two grids meet here, which we have this bit of an odd angle, it's really tricky. So right now in the game, there are not a lot there, except for that one angle building. There aren't any angle buildings in game. So yeah, this is a bit of a, takes a bit of time to fiddle around and get that to work. Okay, I'm just gonna finish filling out the residential neighborhoods on the west bank of the river here. Going to also be adding an elementary school and a high school. I went with this high school, which is more for an urban setting. I'm sort of like, I know there's going to be like a commercial district on this side, and I think it's a bit scattered about how to go about depicting this right now. Some of these buildings might be a little too high, but it's really an indication or kind of like foreshadowing, you know, what's going to come for the neighborhood. I'm placing a college down here. I'm placing it for the functionality, but I'm also claiming an area where I'll come back and build a proper college campus. This intersection is going to become a problem in the future. I'm not really at a point where I'm thinking about upgrading the roads quite yet, but we are going to add a turning lane here. I don't know how helpful it will be, but hopefully it'll alleviate some of the traffic. But this is going to be a problem in the future for sure. And we have to make a little adjustment to our parking lot here to accommodate it. I'm going to be moving that church to this location. I think this might be a bit better. When the Skyline starts to build up on this side, I think this will blend in a little better. Once again, I found these. These are custom assets from the mod store. Unfortunately, I don't remember the name of the person who made these, but these are also very nice looking. And that gives you an idea of what our Skyline is going to look at this stage of our build. So a little more density, but nothing crazy quite yet. Okay, so we need a train depot to get our railroad functional. We're going to be building this a little ways up along the river here, a little flat area. We'll have to see how the city develops. This might be moved so it can become a larger rail yard, but for the moment, for the size of the city, this is more than sufficient. My first thought was to use this particular train station, which is very, very nice, but it is, much older looking. It might be it could be like an older rail yard, but what I decided to go was this smaller one here. It's much more modern looking. I think this is more appropriate. I don't think I'm going to need a lot of trains. There's only going to be so many places the train's going to be able to go to. I think this might suffice for what my needs in game, and it just takes up a little less space. Finding the flat area to dedicate to a massive rail yard is going to be a bit of a challenge in this game if I decide to do it. So for starting, this is perfectly fine. I'm not like a train expert or anything like that. So for drawing out the rail yard here, I'm just going to try to make it, what seems logical to me. I'm just going to draw it out that way. If something is really, truly incorrect, please let me know. I might be able to fix it. My goal might not be to make it super realistic, but at least make it look plausible. Now I'm just going to connect my first passenger line up to the outside world. I'm just going to draw in one for now just to make sure everything's working. I have to redraw some of the train lines here to get it connected to the other line. The rail line is also going to be probably expanding down into the canyon area. I'm not going to do that in this episode. That's going to be a bit of work to get it to fit down there, but I think that's where it's going to go. And I'm just going to have a little overpass here to get over the tracks to the actual depot. And I'm going to be including a little bit of industry around it. I want to keep the industry fairly sparse. Like right here, this was like starter industry and it's way too dense. It's also in a bit of a cul-de-sac. I'm going to be drawing in another access point here across the river. And yeah, this is way too dense, so I'm going to start editing it down. I will probably edit it down even more as we go. I'm not going to be focused too much on detailing this quite yet either, so it's just establishing, where things go at this point. For the detailing part of this episode, I'm just going to be detailing in and around the train depot. I'm really at this point unsure how to go about detailing a drier environment, so this is kind of like an experiment detailing session here, just to kind of try out some things and see how things are going to look. The biggest challenge here is the track beds. This gray color seems totally inappropriate. Now, we do have those very nice net lanes to cover this up. My problem is I don't think any of the colors of them really match my landscape very well. This one's probably the best, but it's not necessarily the best for every location. I went for this net lane to cover up the track beds in the depot. I don't like how this turned out. This was a failed experiment for sure. It just looks messy. For the surface detailing, I'm going to be using Real Vision decals here. These are always great. Mixing them together, I think I achieved some really nice surface detailing here. Some of these mix very nicely with the dried grass surface here. Mixes perfectly on top of the map surface. And you can see here I'm struggling with the edge of the track bed here because it doesn't interact with anything, so trying to hide it or disguise it is always a big, huge challenge. These custom tree assets are a godsend. These match my environment. Like, I think these look a little more natural on this map than the vanilla trees. So I'm going to be leaning heavily into the use of these throughout a large segment of the map, especially along the riverbanks where there's water. I think these are going to be the default tree for most of that area. But I think these look really, really nice. I'm not nearly concerned with the roads, even though they are a bit flat. I think they blend into the landscape a little nicer. Adding a bit of green here along the riverbanks. I'm not going to go too crazy on the prop detailing around this. I'm kind of envisioning this as it's kind of sparse looking, right? There's not, if you were to drive by this on a daily commute into town and you had to drive by this location every single day, one thing you might notice about it, that it never seems to ever change. It always looks more or less the same. You never see any people or anything like that. I don't know how many places I can think of where like these like industrial areas that if you drive by them on a regular basis, yeah, it never looks like anything's going on. They always look deserted. My biggest issue with the vanilla trees and shrubs is just their colors. They don't seem very suitable. Here I'm using one of these, like the dead version of one of these shrubs here to fill in this area. Look like weeds. Looks pretty good, I think. It's a real shame about the chain link fence assets here. The way the draw distances on them are all messed up because it makes them pretty unusable, which is really unfortunate for a build like this. I'm going to be using a few like props here just to kind of like make it look like there's something going on here. But yeah, the idea here is to make it look pretty deserted. Okay, so what I've noticed on one of the bridge crossings there's a ton of pedestrians trying to get across. So I'm going to be making a dedicated pedestrian cross walkway across the river. I'm using one of the leisure piers for this. These work great for walkways like this. They have lighting across them. I'm going to be using these more often. And a little walkway over the train tracks on the other side. As you can see, this is very popular. There is a little glitch where you can't really connect paths to roundabouts or cul-de-sacs, so we have to do this little trick here with the surfaces to connect this. This awkward space here, I couldn't really think of what would go in here, so I figure it's a good location for a park. I don't know what's up with this grass surface on this particular one. Like, where did this come from? Because that is like the ugliest surface I've ever seen. I'm going to switch these out for Gaga XM surfaces. Once again, I love the way these blend in with the map surface. Like this dried grass effect looks so nice. And I'm just going to finish off the courtyard around this church. This is also another really beautiful asset off the mod store. We've gotten quite a few churches lately, which is wonderful because they're so important to the skylines of most cities. Anyway, that brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for sticking around to the very end. If you like this video, please feel free to like and subscribe. It really will help out. I don't ask very often, but it truly does help the channel. But to be honest, sticking around to the very end and watching the entire video is the clearest signal you can send to the YouTube algorithm to show this video to more people. So once again, thank you very much for sticking around to the very end. And I will see everybody in the next episode. We'll be back at Monte Palma for that one. Anyway, everybody take care. I'll see you next time. Bye.